beautiful, yeah, isn't it?
Yeah.
It matches.
Yeah.
What do you mean match? The gold and the silver?
She's beautiful.
It is beautiful. Torah Shabbat.
She's wonderful, really. She's in that time when you notice in this month, in June, the German came to us and they took away everything from us. And now we bring the Torah to the shul. In June. The same June.
It's the 1 year?
Yeah, the same year.
Wait, you'll get us later.
Alright, let's get my father. All the way back here. Ready? Let's get my father and Yudi. Yudi, come on. Ready? Say Torah. Alright. Come on, Menachem.
Let's do our famous formations.
Alright, one more. Smile and say Torah. Thanks.
Did you let it go, or? That's actually good to walk away from it. But I hope it's pass fail, dude. Big bye.
How are you? Smart. Took it to them grocery goods.
Rachel, are you getting ready to speak? I'm going to make a speech. Can everybody...
Menachem, one more time. And stay up. Ready? Menachem, wait. Menachem, quickly. Menachem. Menachem, come on, look at Ari. Menachem, open your eyes. Menachem, please open your eyes. Menachem, oh my God.
The twins coming up the rear.
Okay.
Thank you. How are you? Okay. This is great. This is very exciting.
I remember
When I was this big. Yeah,
this big.
Come on.
Just lovely.
Isn't this beautiful? This is great. These are friends of Rose Sugar.
How do you do? I'm friends with Mrs. Fishkin.
And Mrs. Fishkin. Wonderful.
This is truly a beautiful stuff.
Look. Beautiful day for it. Hi, how are you? Africa, or whatever you say.
Kids should have known when the name we found that would have made it more beautiful.
You're being taken.
Rabbi Gassel.
He doesn't answer.
Rabbi Gassel. We're all rabbis.
You know, want to hear an interesting thing?
Meet Rabbi Gassel.
Friday night.
So this is very nice.
Please bend over. Bend over, please. How's that? How's that? Turn around. How will we march?
Long distance to walk.
That's right.
Say hello. Got it, Joey? Yes. Hello.
Yeah, but I got this.
Ladies, which button? This button? Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, if everybody could come a little closer to the steps here. People across the street, if you want to come a little closer. We'd like to welcome you all here this afternoon, to thank everyone for coming and participating in this significant undertaking, this donation by the Fishkin family, by Rabbi and Rebbetzin Fishkin of the Sefer Torah to our Torah congregation. We have what I think will be not only a very interesting, but a very, very revealing program to share with you this afternoon. A program that deals with an odyssey through Europe, and a program that I think will touch each and every one of you. And to begin that program, I'd like not only to be poschin b'schvod Achsanya, but indeed to introduce the Achsanya himself, to call upon Harav Fishkin to say a few words to us all. Harav Fishkin.
My dear people, my dear good friends, my dear family, all the guests, when they came from all over, and special to our Moronon V'Rabonon, Daily Israel, but I don't have this here. To have them here is only Machmas Koved HaTeiro. Chas v'sholem, don't have suspicion that I have interest Koved Atzmi. It's klum, nothing. The important is Koved HaTeiro, what you are doing and you are giving and you are sharing with my dear wife, Rebbetzin Fishkin. It is everything Me'is Hashem. It is from God. Min HaShomayim. The Pesach Hatzar, what I get Min HaShomayim from the heaven, when all the yeshiva was running and the Rosh HaYeshiva went in Israel, Rav Gusman Zecheinu Levrocho, getting a certificate, become lost. And then is the Russian people, they start the government. What you doing? In Russian is you have to work, you will eat. If not, you cannot eat. No privileges. And they start to bother us. Then he split up the yeshiva, only 10 boys separately in a separate place. I was not home. My parents was in the other land, occupied already. What to do? You have so much on yourself. And really, I saw Min HaShomayim. Don't worry. Saturday night, I get a letter from my dear friend. He'll come. I have something for you. And I feel that is Min HaShomayim. And he was on the other place to collect money for the yeshiva in the terrible time. And he called me I have something for you. I hope to Hashem that is the Pesach Hasar, what it will come for you. And he came to Old Shad. That is my grandfather, my father-in-law really. He came together and they picked me up and I came to the town Old Shad. That was Saturday, August of Shabbos. And that was for me, Min HaShamayim, the Zivung, to be in life. No one left from the yeshiva. Only I myself. Is I will appreciate all my life to you, to my dear wife, Fege. Next, at the same time when I come to the town, and I was surprised at the Sefer Ponim Yafot, what I get from them. I saw the Sefer Teres. And then, 2 months after the wedding, he came suddenly. The Nazis came. And you know what was the end? It was the destruction from everything. And I get a small Torah from this priester. I said, I cannot keep a big Sefer on me. Give me the clean Sefer. And that's I took this small Sefer with me. I took out the Eschaims, just only the Riyas, and bind it in a pekele, and I keep it myself all the time. This Sefer Torah, what you have now, this is the Torah what was with us all the time. All the how to say, in the forest, in any house, in any place, until, thanks to Hashem, is all there. I will say, Zeh Hayoim, this is the day Shekivinu we hoped to him. Shechikinu, what we waited so much times, because the heart's feeling told me, don't leave this Sefer Torah here in this shul, because I don't know what is the future from this. I don't know the connection with us. But Baruch Hashem, when I came here, to my dear children and grandchildren, all the family, I saw this is my home. I came to be Sameresh. I hear Tayera Wort von Rav Besden von Allemen, Rav Schwartz. I hear the word what he said to Rabbi Cohen. Rabbi Fishkin came. Grab him now, and you will have him all the time in shul. And that was. And the Rebbe, Rav Schwartz, he took me like a brother. He gave me his seat, gave me his own stand there. And that is Baruch Hashem, more like 3 years we are sitting together, we daven together, we learn Baruch Hashem. I will keep this all in my life, that it was. But the Sefer Torah, you have to remember, it is not Zeis HaTorah, Ogil v'Esmach, v'Zeis HaTorah. Ki hilonu eiz ve'eiro, even in the darkness, in the finsternness, not knowing what is with us every day and night, is the Torah was for us the summer, the Chaye. He gave us chiyus, food, physically and geistig, chizuk. And I said, Rebbeinu Shalom, man de Yitva, the Rebbeinu Shalom was evet monen, für die vergossene Blut. Für die jüdische Kinder waren sie ihre Meiches, wo sie sind gespolten geworden, bei Beimer, bei Tris, nicht zu schießen, und mit Gesalvet auf viele ein Keul. Die Blut von so viel Millionen, jüdische Blut, ist Hashem Gott, Rebbeinu Shalom. Du wirst doch auf gewiss Monen, ist hu Yitwa, will ask also Nikome for the Rhein. They will get paid. Die Teirele, says HaTeiro. What we are giving is also reason, yes. Because the Torah is Lilmeid Ulelameid, Lishmoyer Velaseis. Learn for yourself and to teach somebody. Kriyas HaTorah. And to do mitzvahs and zu mekayim sein. Ze HaTorah. Ze Hayim. Also Hashem is Nogilo v'nismechu b'hi. Let's be happy, my dear people. Let's sing Simen Tov and Mazel Tov. Simen Tov and Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov and Simen Tov. Simen Tov and Mazel Tov and Mazel Tov and Simen Tov. Simen Tov and Mazel Tov and Mazel Tov and Simen Tov. Yehei Lanu. Simen Tov and Mazel Tov and Mazel Tov and Simen Tov. Simen Tov and Mazel Tov and Mazel Tov and Simen Tov. Simen Tov and Mazel Tov and Mazel Tov and Simen Tov. Yehei Lanu. Yehei Lanu, Yehei Lanu. Ulechol Yisrael. 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 Yasher Kichachen. Thank you very much to everyone. It is really Koved HaTorah. Yehi Maskechem. Fulon.
Any girls? Girls. Let's start with the boys. We'll ask the Eineklich to come over and to hold the poles. And Harav Fishkin will begin the processional as we walk to the shul. As we walk, we will be giving other people an opportunity to hold the Sefer Torah. No, over here. No.
Sorry. Don't take it.
No.
All right.
Okay, Rav Fishkin. Let us go. Simen Tov, Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov, Simen Tov, Simen Tov,
Good.
know. I got her directly.
Rebbitzin, this isn't a mic. That is for the...
Want the bullhorn?
No. If we can have your attention, this is almost like Shabbos in Shul. If we could have everybody's attention. Hi.
Now you can use a mic.
No. I'm sure that all of you, by our particular Kehillah of our Torah, let me give you first an overview of our schedule, and we hope that you'll stay with us throughout the entire afternoon. We will have a few speakers who will share a few words with us. We have asked them, b'mechilas kavodam, to be brief, because there are several who will be speaking. After that, we will daven mincha together. And after mincha, everyone is invited upstairs to a special Sudas mitzvah that is being provided by the Fishkin family. So we hope that everybody stays with us for the entire activity. To begin our program, it is my pleasure to introduce to you the president of our shul, David Lennon, who will stand words of greeting and bracha.
It is indeed a true honor to be standing at this moment, to have the kavod, to be receiving the Sefer Torah. And I certainly am not going to say too much, because there's so many great Rabbanim here who certainly will be giving you much more important words of Torah. But on behalf of Or Torah, Congregation Or Torah, we would like to thank Rabbi and Mrs. Fishkin for this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful honor that they are bestowing upon our community. To be able to bring this Sefer Torah to a beautiful spot, a beautiful Aron Kodesh, and to rest here and to be used here is certainly a tremendous, tremendous honor, and it leaves me a bit speechless. So I really want to say, in behalf of all of us, thank you so much for that beautiful thing, and thank you, Ruvain, and we will now go on with the program.
Those of you who are at the Fishkin home heard the words of tribute of Harav Fishkin for his good chaver, Harav Gedalia Dov Schwartz, both from New York and now together in Chicago. I've introduced him many, many times. Not only is he based in of the CRC and of the RCA, but as an Adam Gadol, a Gon B'Yisrael, someone who stands as a Mora Hara in our community. It is my pleasure to call upon Harav Gon Reb Gedalia Dov Schwartz.
Rabbanim Chashuvim and Ichbadim, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to do something now which I've never done before in the city of Chicago. Ich gewollt anfangen de mannen a paar Werte auf Yiddish, der Sprach, in welcher Jiden haben gerät in der Ort von wann es wird genommen der Sefer Torah. Das sind nur ein paar Werte als Einleitung, weil ihr wisst doch, als in jeder jiddische Simcha, was es soll nicht sein, ist doch ein Indien von Seichel Lechum, mit dem Mann Techum. Und bei Nasseinu Harabim leider, als man sieht, wie es ist gerade geworden als Sefer Torah, durch Jahren von Pein und Wanderung in einer finsteren Wald unter Teutschreck und derselbe Zeit, wo wir freuen sich, als man geraten wird, das Sefer Torah, überhaupt durch die untermittliche, die Stadlis von Rav und Rebbetzin Fishkin soll sein gesund. Es ist derselbe Zeit, darf man den Mannen als in der Kehillah von wann der Sefer Torah ist genommen geworden, in der Städte von Olschat, der tagtägliche Sprach, äußer der goyische Sprach in der Reisen, ist gewähnt Yiddish. Und Yiddish ist der Sprach, was man kann nicht sagen, wie man sagt, Loshen HaKedesh, der heilige Sprach, aber wie andere haben geschrieben und gerät, das ist der Loshen von Kadeshim. Von den Kadeshim, wir sind umgekommen von unseren Brüdern und Schwestern in den europäischen Gruppen. Es ist dieselbe Zeit, als wir freuen sich, muss man das dämonen und wir hoffen, wir sind in Spallel, als der größere Jontef, was wir im Heim gefeiert und eingebracht, das Sefer Torah nach Sanja Shel Torah, soll keinmal nicht verstärkt werden und es soll sein nur Simches und Fried, nicht nur besonders in der Fishkin Mishpacha, Jedidi, Harav Fishkin, seine ganze Mishpacha, seine noble Mishpacha, und euch für alle Mitglieder von der Kehillah da in der Torah und für Klal Yisrael. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a statement that we find in the Gemara and the Talmud in Mayat Cotton, which tells us that in regard to the laws of mourning and the laws of kriya, of tearing garments, there are certain garments, at least certain occasions, that once that this garment is torn, we cannot reweave it into its original fabric. There are certain koyim, certain rents, that she'ein mesachim. They are never woven together. And one of them is al Sefer Torah shenisraf. When a Sefer Torah is destroyed, when it's burned, and we're told to rend our garments if, chas v'chalila, we are witness to such a terrible event. And the Gemara goes on further on the same Amud in the Gemara, that Omer B'chel B'Omer Avhuna, Hareya Sefer Torah shenikra, whoever sees a Sefer Torah that is torn apart, is chayav likroa shtei kriyos, has to tear twice. Echad al hagvil, one on the very body, on the parchment of the Sefer Torah, and the echad al aksav, and one because of the destruction of the writing of the Asius. When we think of European Jewry, especially East European Jewry, which takes in many countries, and of course today the center of our attention is the saving and we would say the reestablishment of a Sefer Torah that was brought out of one of the shtetlich of Lita of Olshat. At the same time, we think of European Jewry as one gigantic Sefer Torah of all of the yeshivos, of the communities, of the Bati Midrashim, of the Bati Knesios, of even the just the plain people that were in all of these shtetlich. And as the Gemara tells us in Shabbos that every Jew is Daimel Sefer Torah, is comparable to a Sefer Torah, he has that particular potential. And when we have, through the years, bemoaned and bewailed and tried to remember the destruction of European Jewry, it's not that we have rent our garments and our souls, but once or twice, who knows how many times, because we have remembered not only the body politics, so to speak, of European Jewry, but the spiritual heritage of a lost world that was wiped out and obliterated by the onslaught of monstrous conspiracies, not only against the Jewish people, but against humanity in general. So at the same time, we are overjoyed that we have a Sefer Torah, but it's not so much the Sefer Torah, but the human story that goes with it. Harav and Rebbetzin, Fishkin, Shalita, they are survivors of the Holocaust. They are survivors of a terrible nightmare that took place many years ago, half a century ago. And whereas when we mentioned in the Gemara, there's Gvil, there's the body of the Sefer Torah, there's the Ksav, and there's the writing, we are happy that they are here today, both the Gvil and the Ksav, the very living testimonial of what they did in saving the Sefer Torah and building a family after being left destitute. And there's the Ksav, the story of what they went through. But the story is a type of a story that has, as the Gemara tells us in Avodah Zarah, that even when Gvilim on Nisrofim, even when the parchment is destroyed, the Eisius Perchus. The letters fly away, and in a good measure they have flown across the sea and have become attached into the members of their mishpacha who have been encouraged and have been trained and have inculcated to carry on the tradition and to carry nobly the standard of the Sefer Torah. There's an unfortunate fact that the casualties of the Holocaust were not only amongst those who did not survive to be amongst the living. There are many, many casualties among the living who have been embittered, who could not put together their lives again. Or if they have made some semblance of order in their lives, there's a certain pall of darkness or of sadness and sometimes of confusion as to what they can do or how they put their life together. In Harav and Harebbetzin Fishkin, who are the noble carriers of this Sefer Torah through all of those years, there we do not find that. We find a positive, wonderful, optimistic attitude which helped them build and have a wonderful family of not one generation, of several generations. So I just wish to extend, in the words of the psalmist, in the words of Tillim, it's a bracha, it's a pasuk that we recite and we associate it with a bris milah, sos anochi al imrosecha k'meitzei shalarav, which generally refers to the mitzvah of milah, but we can even apply it in this particular occasion. We are rejoicing on your words, Hashem Yisborach, the words of the Torah. Imrosecha k'motzei shalarav. Shalom means something that was snatched, that was saved, the booty, literally the loot that was taken out of those years of terrible pain, of terrible tragedy. So we rejoice at this moment, and I want to extend on my own behalf, on behalf of my Rebbetzin, and I'm quite sure on behalf of everyone here, the bracha that we have from Yeshayahu HaNavi that was incorporated into the davening that we say every single day of the year. Vani zeis brisi oisam amar Hashem. And the Navi is talking about the brisi, the covenant, the Torah, which Hashem has said, Ruchi asher alecha, my spirit, which has been upon you, Dvarai asher samti beficha, my words which I have placed in your mouth. So I wish that we all direct them to the Fishkin family. Lo yamushu mipicha umipizaracha umvizerazacha. It shall not be removed, the words of the Torah, from your children, from your grandchildren, from future generations. Omar Hashem, Hashem has said, Me'ato v'ad olam, from now and forevermore. Mazel tov to the Fishkin Mishpacha and Mazel tov to all us. May we see many more simchas in our Torah and in the Fishkin family.
From the day that the Fishkins arrived to Chicago and relocated from New York into West Rogers Park, they have been mispawalim at the congregation of Das Yeshurun, accepted by the Rav of that shul, treated with the utmost of derech eretz and respect. He has always been a good friend and a good chaver to the Fishkin family. It's my pleasure to call upon Harav Zev Cong.
I'd like to begin, before wishing Mazel Tov, by saying that every Shabbos morning, Shabbos afternoon, every Shachris, almost every time I walk into shul, I am humbled, because sitting to my left is almost 100 years of Rabbonis between Rabbi Fishkin and Rabbi Schwartz. I've had tremendous encouragement, tremendous advantage of being able to learn from them, glean from them, and I'm makir toiv, especially at this time, Rabbi Schwartz, Rabbi Fishkin, both of their Rebbetzins, for everything that they have done to help myself and my wife blend into this role of being a Rav. I'd like to begin, obviously, Shus T'Mar D'Asra, by wishing a Mazel Tov to Rabbi and Rebbetzin Fishkin and the entire Fishkin Mishpacha. I'd like to say one brief word as to why we just did what we did. Why did we dance through the streets? Why did we make such a celebration? Why didn't we just take the Sefer Torah and simply put it in the Aron? Why did we have to have such a simcha? And I'd like to say the following. The Rambam says, in Hilchos Beis HaBechira, Perek Hey, the Rambam says that the Kedusha, the holiness of Yerushalayim, has never left. And the Rambam says 3 words, because Shechina Eina B'Teila. The Shechina is never bottled, the Shechina never left, the Shechina never leaves, the Shechina is always there. In Perek Daled of Hilchos Beis HaBechira, the Rambam says the following. The Rambam says that when Shlomo HaMelech built the Beis HaMikdash, underneath the Beis HaMikdash, at the time that the Beis HaMikdash was built, Shlomo HaMelech built catacombs, he built tunnels underneath the Beis HaMikdash. Imagine, Shlomo HaMelech, when he built the Beis HaMikdash, had to build tunnels because he knew that one day the Beis HaMikdash was going to be destroyed. And he wanted a place for the Aron to be hidden. And the Rambam says, Yoshiyahu HaMelech hid the Aron in those catacombs that were built by Shlomo HaMelech more than 400 years before him. Almost 400 years before him. Someone once asked, the Rambam is a Sefer of Halacha. The Rambam doesn't discuss history. Why does the Rambam mention where the Aron was hidden? What halachic significance does it have? Rabbi Soloveitchik in Boston, Shlita, you should have a refuah shalema, once told me that he believes that the pshat in the Rambam is, and afterwards I saw this in other svarim, he believes that the pshat in the Rambam is, that the Rambam wants to tell us the following, that the reason why the Shechina is Eina B'Teila, and the reason why Yerushalayim maintains its Kedusha Ad HaYom until this day, is because the Aron is buried in Yerushalayim. The Aron is underneath the Makam HaMikdash, it's underneath the Temple Mount, the Aron is there, and because the Aron is there, the Shechina is there, and because the Shechina is there, the Kedusha is there. What gives the Aron its Kedusha? What gives the Aron its Kedusha is because the Aron contains the Luchos, the first Luchos, the second Luchos, and the Sefer Torah that Moshe Rabbeinu wrote. A shul, nowadays, when there is no Beis HaMikdash, a shul is a Beis HaMikdash ma'at. And that's why there are many things in a shul that correspond to the Beis HaMikdash. And one of the things that correspond to the Beis HaMikdash is the Pareiches. There's a cover on the Aron. Why does every shul have a cover on the Aron? Because there was a Pareiches in the Beis HaMikdash. There was a curtain in the Beis HaMikdash before the Aron HaKodesh. What was in the Aron HaKodesh in the Beis HaMikdash? The Luchos and the Sefer Torah. Exactly what we have in our Aron. What we just did today is, if the Kedusha of this shul and every shul is because there is Sifrei Torah in the Aron, that's what makes the Kedusha in the Beis HaMikdash, that's what makes the Kedusha in the shul. The more Sifrei Torah, the more Kedusha. What we're doing right now is we just enhance the Kedusha of this shul, of this Beis Knesset. And by doing that, since the Shechina resides nowadays in the Beis Knesset, we've enhanced the ability for the Shechina to reside in this Makom. That's as far as the Kedusha of the Makom. But then there's an added significance. And that is that, I'm sure many people are aware, Rabbi Fishkin is one of the few people in the world, together with his Rebbetzin, who can say that he was a Rav before the war. Not that he's somebody surviving from Europe, not only that, as much meaning as that has, but he was a Rav before the war. A Rav before the war with a shul with Sifrei Torah. A Rav who lived through the war with his own Sefer Torah, in a cave, with the Holocaust, as Rabbi Schwartz just mentioned. Such a Sefer Torah has an added dimension, because not only are we putting a Sefer Torah in this Aron and enhancing the Kedusha of the Makom, we're putting such a Sefer Torah in this Aron and enhancing the Kedusha of the Makom. We're transplanting, if you would like, we're transplanting that Kedusha, that life, that aura and we're placing it here, the hemshich, the continuity of the Deiros. But I'd like to conclude with one more Gemara. Gemara says the following. It's a Gemara in Makis and Daf Chav Beis. Omar Rava, Kama tipshoi shar inshi. How foolish are people. The kaimi mikaimi sefer Torah. They stand up for a sefer Torah. Or like kaimi mikama gavra rabba. And they don't stand up for a great man, a great person. As great as the sefer Torah is, and we have nothing, there is no object that we own nowadays that has more kedusha than the sefer Torah. How silly that man is who stands up for a sefer Torah and doesn't stand up for a gavra rabba. You know, there's a halacha. I don't want to call it a halacha. Something new took place in Klal Yisrael a number of years ago. Something called computer checking. Computer checking Sifrei Torah. They scan an entire Sefer Torah and they can tell through the computer if there are any letters missing in the Sefer Torah. They came up with a very interesting statistic. Sifrei Torah that were written after the war have an 83%, maybe higher. 83% of the Sifrei Torah that were written after the war were found to be missing letters. We have car phones, and we have call waiting on our car phones, and maybe we even have fax machines in our cars. And of course we have microwave ovens, and we have everything else, and we never have time. We never have time. And you know what? Seifrim also don't have time. They don't have time. And you know what? In Europe, when a Rosh Yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael told me in Europe it took them 2 hours to make a glass of tea until they heated up the oven and the house got full of soot. Until he finally had a cup of tea and he said in Europe no one ever told him he doesn't have any time. When a Sefer wrote a Sefer Torah in Europe, he had time. He had Yiras Shamayim in his arm, he had Yiras Shamayim in his heart, he had Yiras Shamayim in his brain. He had Yiras Shamayim in the town, he had Yiras Shamayim with the Rav. And that's what we're transplanting. We're taking those Sifrei Torah that don't have to be computer checked and we're putting them in the Oren. With all the history, with all the time, with all the Yiras Shamayim. And the Fishkins are doing it. And it's a tremendous schus. Excuse me if I get a little emotional, but it's a tremendous schus to be able to partake in this mitzvah of being able to have a shir with such wonderful people. As Rabbi Schwartz said, upbeat, positive, wonderful people who I and my wife have learned so much from and gained so much from. And taking such a Sefer Torah and putting it into such an Aron is something that we should all cherish. And when we see that little Sefer Torah, remember, that's a Sefer Torah that belonged to a Rav, who was a Rav in Europe before the war. And people had time, and people had Yiras Shamayim, and people grew. And we should all take that Sefer Torah to our heart, and Be'ezras Hashem, with the Mazel Tov for the Fishkins, and the Mazel Tov for the Shul, and the Mazel Tov for all of Klal Yisrael, they should only have nachas and simchas, and they should continue to have a family that should go Michael Choyel, and only have Yiddish and nachas. Mazel Tov and Amen.
Let's go. You ready to go?
During the day, Harav Fishkin spends most of his hours studying at the Chicago Community Kollel. He goes there, he learns with those who can only learn in Yiddish. He is there as a source of knowledge and as a source of support, both for the Kollel in general and for the individuals who learn within the Kollel in particular. We have a representative from the Kollel to speak to us this afternoon. It's my pleasure to introduce to you Harav Moshe Francis.
Chashuv Rabbonim, the Fishkin family, and honored guests. I've been as moved by this simcha today as everyone else. I think we all have a lump in our throats and tears in our eyes as we go through this together. We know that the greatest mitzvah that we could find is the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, the mitzvah of studying Torah. It's shkula keneged kol mitzvahs. It's equivalent to all the other mitzvahs in the Torah combined. And yet, the Gemara tells us in Megillah that even more important than Talmud Torah is the mitzvah of kavod HaTorah, giving honor to the Torah. Like Rabbi Fishkin says today, he said, you're not coming here because of my kavod, you're coming here because of the kavod of the Sefer Torah. So, the Gemara says that even though we're mevatel Talmud Torah for Mikra Megillah is more important than Talmud Torah. But when it comes to kavod HaTorah, if there's a funeral, Rachmana litzlan, of a Talmud Chacham, on Purim, then we're mevatel Mikra Megillah. We don't read the Megillah. Instead, we go to the Levaya and we're maspid, we give Hespedim for the Talmud Chacham. Because kavod HaTorah is even stronger than limud HaTorah. Honoring Torah is even stronger and even greater than studying Torah. What does honoring Torah mean? Honoring Torah means that when Rav Moshe Feinstein sat down to learn, he never put his back up against the back of his chair. Because when he learned Torah, he had to learn with a certain reverence. You can't sit back and relax when you're studying the Dvar Hashem, when you're studying the Word of God. What does kavod HaTorah mean? Kavod HaTorah means that Rav Yonasan Steif, one of the Gedolim that lived and was passed away not so long ago, whenever he spoke on the phone to Rav Moshe Feinstein, and Rav Moshe Feinstein couldn't see him, he always stood up when he spoke to Rav Moshe Feinstein. Because and he put on his jacket, he spoke to him standing up. And his Rebbetzin asked him, what are you standing up for? Rav Moshe can't see you. He said, but I'm speaking to the Gadol Hadar. How could I sit down when I speak to the Gadol Hadar? And that's what kavod HaTorah means. Rav David Cohen in his Sefer asks a very interesting question. It says that when Moshe Rabbeinu went up on Har Sinai to receive the Torah, so the Gemara says, Rakos mu'umad kashos miyushav. When he learned the simple halachas, he stood up to give honor to the Torah. But when he learned the difficult halachas, he sat down in order to concentrate on the difficult laws that he was studying. So Rav David Cohen asked the question. He says, if kavod HaTorah is more important than limud HaTorah, so Moshe Rabbeinu should have stood. It's better to give honor to the Torah, even if you don't understand the Torah so well, even if there's going to be a decrease in the amount of Torah you study. But kavod HaTorah is even more important than limud HaTorah. So he should have stood even if at the expense of his concentration, even at the expense of his understanding, because there's nothing more important than kavod HaTorah. And he answers that there are two types of kavod HaTorah. The Gemara says in Saita, Mishameis Rabbi Akiva, when Rabbi Akiva died, batul kavod HaTorah. There was no more kavod HaTorah in the world when Rabbi Akiva passed away. What does that mean? Rashi explains that Rabbi Akiva would darshan kol kites for kites shall kol ice. Every mark, every crown on the top of the les of the Sefer Torah, Rabbi Akiva would explain what each mark meant, what each crown meant. And when people would see that there's nothing in the Torah that was written for no reason, Rashi says, V'zeh kavod gadol. This is the greatest honor. She'ein ba davar levatala. There's nothing in the Torah that does not have meaning. And that's the greatest kavod HaTorah. So when Rabbi Akiva died, no one else was capable in explaining every crown on every ice in the Sefer Torah, and therefore kavod HaTorah ceased to exist. The Mishnah says a little bit later, Mishameis Rabbi Gamliel Hazaken. When Rabbi Gamliel Hazaken passed away, it also says batul kavod HaTorah. There was no more kavod HaTorah. What does that mean? So Rashi explains, until Rabbi Gamliel died, people were strong, and no one would learn Torah sitting down. Like we mentioned before, from the times of Moshe Rabbeinu to the times of Rabbi Gamliel Hazaken, no one would sit down when they studied Torah. Everyone would learn Torah standing. When Rabbi Gamliel died, then a certain weakness, a chulsha, entered the world, and people had to sit when they studied Torah. So we see that there's two different types of kavod HaTorah. One type of kavod HaTorah is to learn Torah in depth, to explain every single ice in the Torah. that brings tremendous covenant Torah. Everyone sees that the Torah is the most significant document that mankind ever received. There's another type of covenant Torah which deals with our approach to Torah, to stand up, to give honor to Torah. And therefore, Rav David Cohen explains that when Moshe Rabbeinu went up to Har Sinai to receive the Torah, and it was a question of learning Torah in great depth, the type of learning that Rabbi Akiva did, then it was a question of one type of covenant Torah versus another type of covenant Torah. It was a question of delving deep into the Torah, and that itself was covenant Torah. Or it was a question of standing up, which is another type of covenant Torah. When it comes to a choice of one type or the other type, the most important type of covenant Torah is to learn Torah in depth, so people see that the Torah has great meaning to it, and the Torah is a significant document. When it comes to a question of Stam Limud Torah versus covenant Torah, then covenant Torah is more important. We see from this that there are 3 reasons that we're here today, and possibly 4 reasons. One is the covenant Torah, to give honor to a new Sefer Torah, actually a very old Sefer Torah, that has years of history behind it, that's being donated to this shul. That's one inyan. The second inyan, as Rabbi Cohen mentioned, it's to give kavod to the person who possessed the Sefer Torah, to the person who's giving this Sefer Torah, to a person who's mar b'kavod Torah, who increases kavod Torah by the way he acts and what he does every minute of the day. We have the tremendous lust to have Rav Fishkin learn with us in the Kailo. We can look at him, and we have an image in front of us of what a Yid is supposed to look like. He learns Torah b'hasmada rabbah, and the way he talks to people. There's a statement, Divrei chachamim b'nachas nishmayim. The words of wise people are heard softly. They speak softly. If there was ever anyone who personified this statement more than Rav Fishkin, I have not seen that person yet. Divrei chachamim b'nachas nishmayim. The way he talks to people, masol matana im habriyos, his conduct, his interpersonal relationships are a lesson for all of us. And thirdly, the Gemara says in Kedusha that Rabbi Yochanan would stand up even for a non-Jewish old person. When an elderly person would walk by, even if he wasn't Jewish, Rabbi Yochanan would stand up for him. What's the reason for that? The Gemara says, Kami apartaki adu alayhu. And Rashi explains, how many mikrois vitzarais v'ro nisim harbe v'noifsim. He says, what individual in the world, what old person in the world hasn't gone through so many incidents in his life, so many tzaras in his life, and how many miracles has the average person seen in the course of a lifetime? If this is true of a non-Jew, even a non-Jew, an elderly person, how much more true is it of this Sefer Torah and of Rav Fishkin Shlita? How many incidents, how many tzaras, how many nisim do they witness each and every day with their own eyes? They survived each day in an area that was saturated with Nazis and surrounded by Nazis. By giving... So the covenant Torah that we have in this case is because of the experience that the collective experience that Rav Fishkin together with his Sefer Torah have experienced, and that enhances the covenant Torah that we're responsible to give them. And lastly, by giving covenant Torah to the Sheres HaPleita, to the Ud Mutzel Miyesh, to the people who are spared, we are also giving kavod to the 6 million Kedoshim who perished, the Gedolei Torah and the Sifrei Torah that were burnt and destroyed. Eitz Chayim l'machazikim ba v'soimcheha mu'usha. Torah is a stick of life, a tree of life to those who hold on to it. Rav Aaron Kotler Zatzal explains, it means that those who strengthen themselves through the Torah. L'machazikim ba means those who strengthen themselves through the Torah, it's a tree of life for them. It's only a person who realizes the life-giving qualities of the Torah that can benefit, and for them it's an Eitz Chayim. Rav Fishkin has transmitted this message to his family. The Torah is Eitz Chayim hi l'machazikim ba. It's a tree of life to those who strengthen themselves by holding on to the Torah. For those who recognize the life-giving qualities of the Torah, for them it's an Eitz Chayim. And I could say Ruvain and the rest of the family have held on to that message, the work that they do for Meistas HaTorah, and the work they do, they look at it as a privilege that they could Torah is for them is a privilege that they could use the life-giving qualities of Torah. Everyone should be Zeicha, or Torah, the community, the Fishkin family, everyone should be Zeicha to the brachas of Eitz Chaim L'Machazikim Ba, V'Yisayim Kal Me'usha.
Let's go. Let's go. Before I introduce the next speaker, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm not going to speak yet, just to take a moment of personal prerogative, we have spoken about Harav Fishkin, and that's very well deserved. The Sefer Torah, as I'm sure you'll hear before the afternoon is completed, was really a Sefer Torah that was in the town of Alshud, where Rebbetzin Fishkin lived, and where her father was very, very instrumental in the support of the town and in the support of the Jewish community. I would like you all to know and to meet one of the nicest ladies at Tzadekis in her schus. We have gathered here this afternoon, and that is Rebbetzin Fega Fishkin, and we want to acknowledge and make sure that everybody acknowledges her presence very, very strongly. I will also continue with that point of prerogative. You all know our Fishkins, the Skokie Fishkins. I'd like you to meet the others. I'd like you to meet Dr. Elliott, who is here and came in specifically from New York with his mishpacha to be here with us, and we want to extend a mazel tov to him. I'd like you to meet Gitti, who is here and who is participating in this simcha as well. And if I am missing aunts and uncles or anyone else, I apologize, but I want to make sure that the immediate family is recognized and that we all thank them for everything that they mean both to Chicago, to Yiddishkeit, and to Or Torah. And now, I continue. And now we've got to change a generation, because up to now we've talked about what Harav Fishkin is involved in. Now we've got to talk a little bit about what Ruvain's involved in. And one of the things that he's involved in is Kol Torah's Chesed, which is here in Skokie, which has provided learning for many members of our community. And to represent that Kolel, it's my pleasure to call upon the Rosh Kolel, Harav David Siegel.
Mishus Rav Agon, Rav Schwartz, Choshev Rabbanim, Rav and Rebbetzin Fishkin. Extend Birkus Mazel Tov to the Fishkins, to Reuven and his wife, to their children, the extended family, to Congregation Or Torah, its membership, its Mispalalim, the Skokie community, and the entire Chicago community. It's my chus to share with you a few words. Reuven was kind enough to give me an opportunity to share in this very, very geheben simcha. And it's quite appropriate that this Achnasa Sefer Torah is taking place today as we enter into the week of Parshas Bahaloscha. As a matter of fact, in this week's Sedra, according to the Gemara in Shabbos, there is contained an entire Sefer. It is in 2 psukim. There's a total of 85 letters, the smallest of all of our Sforim, of course. And it has a message within itself, quite related, quite apropos to today's gathering and today's Simcha. We have heard from Rav Agon, Rav Schwartz, the beginning of this Sefer, Vayi bin Soah Aron Vayomer Moshe, referring to the traveling of this Aron, the traveling of the Sefer Torah, and as it left its city in Europe, from Alshot, until it's finally reaching its permanent residence, as we hope it to be, until it will go to Yerushalayim, here in Skokie, in Or Torah. Vayomer Moshe, Moshe says, Kuma Hashem v'yafutzu oyevecha, v'yanusu mesanecha mipanecha, rise up Hashem, v'yafutzu oyevecha, your enemies should scatter. I'm sure a tefillah, I'm sure it is the words that Rav Fishkin and his Rebbetzin had said many a time as the Aron was traveling, as the Sefer Torah was embraced by themselves. V'yanusu misanecha mipanecha. But there's a second half to the Sefer, a very short Sefer, 2 messages. Vayi bin Sar Ha'aron, going from Alshat to Uvenucha Yomar. And as the Sefer Torah, as the Aron Uvenucha, as it rests, Yomar, he says, Moshe Rabbeinu says, Shuvah Hashem, return Hashem. Rivavos, the tens of thousands, Alpha Yisrael, of the thousands of Yisrael. According to the Seforno, that means that there were 10 million Yidden, 10 million Jews in the entire Jewish nation at the time. Permit me to share with you the words of the Targum Yonason, which I've seen for the first time today. And the Targum says, Uvenucha Yomar, as the presence of Hashem represented in the Amud, in the pillar, in the cloud, would rise up above the camp. Uvenucha Yomar, Karabiboy lemishrei Arona, when the Aron, when the Sefer Torah wished to rest, Havyanona mekapel v'koyim, the cloud would stand up, v'koyim, and stop. V'lo havi poris, and it would not spread out over the Jewish congregation, ad havi Moshe koyim bitzalo, until Moshe Rabbeinu would stand up and pray and daven. Umatzli, and he would daven, uvoi rachamin, and he would beg, he would ask mercy, compassion, min kodam Hashem, from Hashem. V'chein amar, and so he said, Tuv kidon meimrod Hashem berachmach tavya, return Hashem Yisborach in your great compassion, u'devar yas amoch Yisrael, and lead your nation Yisrael. Ve'ashrei ikar shechintach beinehon, and see to it that your presence is rested amongst the Bnei Yisrael. Ve'rachem yaser vosa deveis Yaakov manyon alfaya de Yisrael, and have compassion over the nation of Yisrael. A tremendous revelation in this Targum as it relates to today's Simcha. As we're accustomed to thinking, as the Jews traveled through the Midbar, through the desert during those 40 years, they had the Shekhinah, they had the presence of Hashem. The divine presence of Hashem was with them at all times. Something which apparently they deserved, something which they accomplished, and was something to be with them. Says the Targum, it's not so. Every single time this Aron would travel, so the Shekhinah, in a certain sense, was away from them. Did not rest amongst them. It wasn't part of them. Every time they came to camp again, Moshe Rabbeinu required a tefillah. It wouldn't happen otherwise. Moshe Rabbeinu had to daven, had to pray to Hashem, Hashem Yisbarach, rest your divine presence amongst us. And as they would travel a second time, once again the Shekhinah was no longer resting amongst them, and as they would camp a second time, the Shekhinah would wait there, Moshe, you daven, I will then come. And Moshe Rabbeinu entreated Hashem Yisbarach with the great mercy and compassion of Hashem to come and rest amongst Yisrael. In a similar sense, this Sefer Torah has left, Vahi bin Soah Haron, Vayomer Moshe, it left a Venucho, it was once resting in the wonderful, illustrious city of Alshat, a great Yiddish Stadt, which has with it, as we have heard, of course, the illustrious background of European Jewry. Vahi bin Soah Haron, and the Aron is traveling, but Uvenucha Yomar, it is quite true, it has left there, but it is here now. Uvenucha Yomar, as the Aron rests over here, so we can repeat, we can reiterate the tefillah of Moshe Rabbeinu. Uvenucha Yomar, says Moshe Rabbeinu in the tefillah that we say, Shuvah Hashem, Rivavos Alfei Yisrael, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem Yisborach, have compassion, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, have mercy in your greatness, in your kindness, and see to it that the Shekhinah, the divine presence, rests amongst us, as it has in the past, from where that Sefer Torah came from. And permit me to share with you one more word from the Sifri, also on this pasuk. This little Sefer, of course, has a lot of power to it. The Sifri says the following: Magid HaKosuv, the pasuk tells us, Kishahayu Yisrael Nosim, when Bnei Yisrael, when the Jewish people traveled, Alofim, they traveled in thousands. V'chonim, when they came to rest, when they set up the camp, they were then Revavos. There were tens of thousands. And as the Netziv explains, that means that there was a population explosion in a certain sense. And from the time they left one site to the next site, each person, each family had already expanded to another 10 to the family. 1,000 was 10,000. But it doesn't end there. And the words of the Sifri are the following. Amar Moshe, says Moshe Rabbeinu, Eini maniach es hashchina, I will not let the Shekhinah rest. I'm not finished yet. Ad sheteas Yisrael revavos v'alofim, until Yisrael will multiply even further, And in the words of the Netziv, what that means to say is, these revavos, these that have now become 10,000, I ask you, Hashem Yisborach, to multiply them 1,000-fold. And each one of them should be a family, an extended family of 1,000 members to the family itself. And this is Moshe Rabbeinu's tefillah every time the Oron, every time the Sefer Torah comes to rest in its new place. My bracha to our Torah, to the Fishkin family, Harav and Rebbetzin Fishkin, Ruvain and his wife, and their beautiful family, who no doubt, as we already see, are continuing in the legacy, the awesome legacy. Harav Fishkin zal sein gesund. There's a Talmud. Very few individuals in this world now can acclaim such a great credit as being a Talmud of Rav Hagon HaKadosh, one of the only great Torah authorities and Torah giants of yesteryear that led his congregation into the Vayhi bin Soha Aron, Harav Hagon HaKadosh, Rabbi Chanan Zichron Nervacha, Rabbi Chanan Wasserman, a legacy which there is almost nothing that can be said is an unparalleled legacy that Rav Fishkin carries with him. And my bracha to the Fishkin family is, Eini maniach es hashchina. This is the tefillah, these are the words that you should say, Shuva Hashem, and we should all say, Yevenucha Yomar, Ad shetas Yisrael, Revavos va'alofim, as Moshe Rabbeinu says, that each one of the Jewish families, and focus particularly on the Fishkin family, should have a population explosion, not 1 to 10, but 1 to 10 to alofim and revavos, to thousands of beautiful Jewish children carrying on the wonderful tradition of Klal Yisrael in Torah Yiddishkeit.
And now it's my pleasure to introduce our last speaker. I think there are very few people in Chicago who can give us an appreciation of Europe during those terrible years of the Holocaust, who was familiar with that period and whose message is always significant when it comes to those years, my dear friend, Harav Yechiel Pupko.
Kvod Harav Hagoen Reishav Bezdin Rabbi Schwartz, Harav and Rebbetzin Fishkin, distinguished guests. Ich bin doch sicher, als in Besmedrischen Olshad hat die heilige Sefer Torah nicht gehört als viel Droshes. And so this Sefer Torah will now have to become used to this new American practice. Vaydaber Moshe el Roshei Hamatos Livnei Yisrael Le'moer, as Moshe Rabbeinu stands on the shores of the Jordan River, he turns to the tribes and the heads of the tribes and says, Eile Masei V'nei Yisrael asher yotzu me'eretz Mitzrayim l'tziveisom biyad Moshe v'yarim vayichtov Moshe es moitzoeim l'maseihem al pi Hashem v'eile maseihem l'moitzoehem. This then is the sacred itinerary of the past 40 years. And the Lubavitcher Rebbe soll gesund und stark sein, asked a very simple question. Why must we read Vayisu me Ramses, Vayachnu beRamses, Vayisu Vayachnu besukos, Vayisu mi Sukos, Vayachnu beEson, over and over again? They traveled from Suk to Sukkos, they camped there, they left there, they went to the next place, they camped there, and they left there. And the answer that he gives is that wherever the Jewish people went in all of their travels, the Sefer Torah went with them, and wherever they were in their travels in exile, the Aron Kodesh was with them, and they were required to enter that place, and they required a Geula redemption from that place, and they were redeemed in the merit of the Aron Kodesh that was with them. Eile Masei B'nei Yisrael. At the close of the 19th century, there were 1.5 million Jews who lived in what we Jews call Lithuania. The Jewish borders of Eastern Europe are not the same as the geopolitical borders. For us, Lithuania includes the following gubernias or provinces: Kovne, Vilna, Grodno, Suwałk, which has been in Poland for some time, Vitebsk, which is in Belarus, Minsk, which is in Belarus, and Mogilev. 300 of those communities had populations of over 1,000. 12 had cities with 20,000 Jews and more. Those cities with 20,000 Jews and more were Vilna, Minsk, Białystok, Vitebsk, Dvinsk, Brest-Litovsk, better known to Jews as Brisk, Kovne, known to Lithuanians, and a word about them later, as Kaunas, Grodne, Mogilev, Pinsk, Boybrusk, and Gomel, which regrettably had more members in the Communist Party who were Jewish than any other town in Eastern Europe. Until the 16th century, Lithuania was a fringe community for the Jewish people. It was largely under Polish influence, and its first rabbis, its first Torah scholars, came from without. Its first rabbis are well known to you. They are such names as Reb Mordechai Yaffe, the Baal HaLevush, Reb Yoel Sirkis, the Bach, the great commentator on the Torah, who served most of his time in Krakow. The Marshal, Rabbi Solomon Luria, came from Lithuania, but spent most of his years in Lublin. It was only during the 17th century that Lithuania came into its own as a great center of Torah learning and Torah culture. It's the man who turned the corner, the man who marked the shift from Lithuanian dependence upon Polish Jewish scholarship centered in Krakow and Lublin, was none other than Reb Shabsai Reb Meir HaKohen, better known to those of us who learn in yeshivas as the Shach. He was followed by Reb Moshe Rivkis, who was the author of the Be'er HaGola. Of course, you know that Lithuanian ascendancy throughout the world of Torah scholarship was never to be questioned after the rise of the Vilna Gaon, the first scholar since the close of the Gaonic period to receive that title. And you all know the name of his student who forever changed the face of Torah learning and Torah scholarship, Reb Chaim Volozhiner, who in 1803 opened what was the mother of all yeshivot, the Volozhiner Yeshiva. Now is not the time to distinguish between those learning environments created by, say, the Ramah and the Marshal in their Botei Medrash and the yeshivas created by the students of the Gaon, but there was a very significant difference. Now, you know that Lithuanian Jewry was under the rule of the Tsar after the third and final partition of Poland in 1795 until it proclaimed independence on February the 16th, 1918. At that point, with Poland having taken one part of Lithuania, Tsarist Russia the other part of Lithuania, the Jewish community in Lithuania overnight dropped from 1.5 million Jews to a Jewish population of 153,743, according to the 1923 census. Many of you know the late Harav Regensburg, Zechreinu Livrocha. He is, from the point of view of the religio-geography of Eastern Europe, very interesting, because he was born in a town where his father was Rav by the name of Zambrów. Zambrów is important because it was the southernmost town in Polish Lithuania where people still spoke Polish Yiddish. A few kilometers away, people already spoke Polish. I'm sorry, it was the southernmost town where Lithuanian Yiddish was still spoken. A few kilometers south towards Warsaw, Polish Yiddish was spoken. It was the southernmost town on the highway between Białystok and Warszawa, in which Lithuanian rabbis and Lithuanian rabbinic culture held sway. A few kilometers south of Zambrów, Chassidische theology and Chassidische forms of Jewish culture were the norm, and Zambrów was that border town. Jews are first recorded in Olshad in 1662. Now, you know that Olshad, like the rest of Lithuanian Jewry, was to go through some rather tumultuous times. Democratic Lithuania survived only from 1918 until 1926. From 1926 until 1940, it was run by a fascist regime. That fascist regime had only one Jewish party that worked together with it, and that was the Agudas Yisrael. All other Jewish parties refused to work with that regime. In 1897, there were 295 Jews in Olshad, 70 families. In 1923, there were 199 Jews out of 1,000 1849. In 1880, there was a huge immigration from Olshad's Jewish community to South America, South Africa, and the United States. Now, we know the names of some Jews who lived in Olshad, and they are not unimportant. They are mentioned in the history books. First of all, Olshad is near Telz, better known in Lithuanian as Telshai, in Russian as Telshchi, but forever known to Jews as Telz. It was 8.5 miles away. It was also in the same district as another great rabbinic town, Flungen. Now, the reason that Olshad was in such difficult circumstances economically was that the nearest railway station was in Majaik, 27 miles away, and hence it did not flourish initially as an economic center. I regret to report to you that Olshad in the early 17th century was the center of the Lithuanian Orthodox Church, the bishops having held their seat there. It is centered near two rivers. The landscape was rich in hills and pine forests. Now, the new Shavli Memel rail line, which was opened during independent Lithuania after World War I, brought great benefit to the town. A market day was established on Wednesday, and there were 4 regional Yeridim. A Yerid was a market fair that took place in Olshad, and the significance of the community grew. In the summer of 1920, nearly the entire town of Olshad burnt down. With support from the JDC abroad, all the Jewish homes, as well as the Beis HaMedrash, were rebuilt. The Jews made their livelihood in Olshad mainly from trade in produce and flax, as small shopkeepers and as craftsmen. The block and nail factory belonged to Reb Zundel Klein, and an hour or so ago, Rebbetzin Fishkin informed me that his grandchildren or great-grandchildren are still living today in Israel. Reb Zundel Klein was also a rather aggressive salesman. He sent his children to faraway Russian towns. And now we come to our Chosen Torah. You know, today we have not just a Chosen Torah, but we also have a Kalas HaTorah. We have Rebbetzin Fishkin here. There were 2 tanneries in Olshad. One belonged to the Kloria family, and the other belonged to the Factor family. And the Factor family is the family of Rebbetzin Fishkin. Her father, Olav Sholem, was a sheichet, and her brother then moved in to the tannery business. There were also 2 flour mills in Olshad that were under Jewish ownership. Now, to go back in time, and I know that the time is late, but bear with me. In the beginning of the last century, close to 200 years ago, the Goyen Reb Tzvi Hirsch Braudi served in the Kisei HaRabbonis in Olshad. The following story, verified in at least 2 sources, is confirmed. A young fellow of 12 was brought to him to learn Torah. That young fellow was named Yisroel. He was a child prodigy. When Reb Tzvi Hirsch Braude discovered the uncommon talents of this young child named Yisroel, he gave him the title Del Kleiner Alphus. In other words, he said to him he was a miniature Rif, named after the great 12th century scholar of Fez. Later, Rabbi Tzvi Hirsch Braude became the chief rabbi of Salant, and he became well known by the name of Herschel Salanter. His student became known as Rabbi Yisroel Salanter, founder of the Musar movement. So that we have here now, in Or Torah, a living relic of one of the single greatest spiritual and intellectual achievements to overcome the Jewish people in the past 1,000 years, the Musar movement, born out of Rabbi Yisroel Salanter and his encounter in Olshad with Reb Tzvi Hirsch Braude. There was a Chevra Mishnayos in Olshad, a Chevra Shas, and there was an Eirech Chaim society where Shulchan Aruch was regularly studied. During the days of independent Lithuania, there were variety. There was a Cheder, and there was also a Talmud Torah. In addition, there took place a rabbinic conference in Olshad in the year 1908. And there were 14 rabbis present. Among them was the regional chief rabbi. Many of you will probably guess at his name, the Blazer Gordon of blessed memory, the Rav of Telz. Now, the reason that this rabbinic conference was held was that there were great concerns about the effectiveness of Jewish education, given the rise of the Haskalah and assimilationist tendencies, it shows you that very little has changed in the past 100 years. There were several decisions taken at this rabbinic conference in Olshad. One of them was that there would be permitted only a half hour of secular studies within the day-long cheder. Those of you who are members of boards of day schools take note. And in addition, it was agreed that it was decided that in the interests of combating the Haskalah, the cheder and the community ought to publish a weekly newspaper, half in Yiddish and half in Hebrew. The last rabbi of Olshad was Reb Avrom Abba HaKoyen Zak. He was murdered in the summer of 41 at the age of 83. He served the community of Olshad from 1890 until 1941. Eile Maseh B'nai Yisrael, these indeed are the travels of the Jewish people, but there is one more itinerary I have to give you, and I know that my time is, that I'm way beyond my time, but since Poischin B'chvei Dachsanya, the next piece of the itinerary is about the family factor, the family Fishkin. This family, you know that in June, late on June 22nd, 1941, the enemy invaded the Soviet Union, and you know that Lithuanian Jewry was murdered between late June of 41 and Sukkot of 1941. In fact, the highest kill rate in all of Eastern Europe was Lithuanian Jewry, one of European Jewry's most scholarly communities. The family of Rebbetzin Fishkin was taken along with many other Jews to Telz and was then returned from Telz back to Olshad for a very simple reason. Marx was right. Economics is everything. The local peasants needed the tannery factor to continue to function. And so they came back, they were brought back, and the factory functioned from June until Sukkot of 1941. The Lithuanian partisans kept the family under house arrest. A word about Lithuanians and current-day Yugoslavia. There were only two peoples in Europe that murdered Jews before they were asked to murder Jews, and those were the Lithuanians and the Croatians. So much for a free Yugoslavia. During that winter period, the family gave all their possessions to the locals, knowing that they would need their help when it came time to flee. Reuven's grandfather was certain that in the end they would be killed. The larger Sifrei Torah in the shul were given to the local Catholic priest for safekeeping. The smaller Sefer Torah, the one kept by the family, is in fact here. There was a farmer by the name of Stropis who took the family in a large hay wagon to a barn a few kilometers away to a farm owned by a Karposkis who was a supplier of leather to the factory. The farm was isolated on the property in the forest. The family hid in the loft for 6 months from Sukkot to Pesach of 42. Eile Maseh B'nai Yisrael, these two are the travels of the Jewish people. In Pesach, Pesach of 42, the Germans discovered that the family was hiding in the forest. Kartovskis was enraged with the family for being seen in the forest away from the barn. The family ran to another barn. A cellar was constructed, covered with hay, terrible conditions, cold, no air to breathe. The cellar was filled with water in the rain. Karposkis would bring food to them. On occasion, the family had to forage in the fields at night. There were babies born to uncles in this cave underneath the barn. And Lifnei Edein Shel Akum, before the accursed holidays of pagans, in December of 1942, the priest came to the family and said, "Why does God punish you so much?" Anti-Jewish propaganda 2,000 years old did not abate even in those days. The grandfather made a luach in the cave in order to keep track of Jewish time. The family did the best they could to learn Torah and pray. On occasion, the grandfather almost lost hope. People developed TB. The family was once again seen by people in the forest. Karposkis threatened to cover the air passage and bury them alive. He actually did do it one day. The same day, hundreds of Germans searched the area for the family. in the barn. Karpuskis was herded in by Germans. He heard a baby crying. The Germans did not. And afterward he said to the family, if God made this miracle occur that the Germans didn't hear, then he must make sure that this family is saved. However, they could not continue to stay in that barn. The baby boy was given to a local peasant family to save its life. After the war, Reuven's uncle Meir was told by the family that the baby died and was now buried. A location was discovered in the woods where the farmers kept their harvested feed over the winter. The family relocated to a hole in the frozen ground, again under the hay. Finally, the war came to an end, and you know what the Red Army did. The Red Army came in and dealt with collaborators who had collaborated with the Germans in a way that American soldiers never learned to do. And the man who in fact had saved them, they testified, the Factor family, Rebbetzin Fishkin, testified on his behalf to the local Red Army officials. That then is the story of this Sefer Torah. This is Eile Maseh B'nai Yisrael, and as we walked in the desert for 40 years with the Ananei HaKovod, the glory clouds, to protect us, we walk too in more difficult and less pleasant places as well. I want to close with a brief medrash found in the Psikta de Rev Kahana for Anochi Anochi of the Shiva Dinachemte. Reb Abba Bal Kahana tells us as follows: to what can the relationship of the Jewish people to Bnei Yisrael be compared? L'melech shekidesh l'matroina v'kosav lo ksubo meruba. A king married a matron, a noble woman, wrote to her a rather tidy sum in the ksube, and he let her be, v'holach lo'lim dinas hayom, and he abandoned her and went overseas. V'shor shom shonim halbe, and this matron sat many, many years. And her friends would demand of her, and they would say, Ad mosei at yesiva, how long do you sit here and wait for this old king? Sov lech bal, go get yourself a new husband. Ad de atalia, ad de chelech alayich, while you're young and you still have your strength. V'hoiso nichneses besoich beso, v'noiteles ksuboso, v'koirei bo misnachemes. She would then go into her house, read the ketubah, the marriage contract written to her years ago by the king who had abandoned her, and she would be comforted. La'achar yomim bo hamelech mim dinas hayom. The king came, and he said, Biti, tmiani, heichim tamtli kol hashonim alolu. I'm astounded, my beloved. How were you able to wait for me all these years? Omar lo yadoni hamelech, my master the king, yelulei ksuba meruba shekosavtoli, kvar hoyu chaveroisai me'avdoi soisi mimcha. Were it not for the very generous ketubah that you wrote for me, my colleagues would have torn me away from you. In this world, the nations of the world demand of Israel, and say to them, how long will you continue to die for your God? Convert. Come to us. We will make of you mighty officers. The Jewish people enter their houses of study and their synagogues. And they take the Torah scroll. The Keirin Bay, and they read in the Torah scroll. I will walk in your midst. I will make you fruitful. And I will multiply you. And I'll fulfill my covenant with you. Rebbetzin Fishkin, Harav Fishkin, Reuven and Rachel Fishkin. Il molei ksuba meruba shekosav tolanu. Were it not for the great ksuba written for us in this Torah, one, it's shvalza oisius, it's black letters, but secondly, it's vaisa oisius, the white letters of its history, we would have been lost. Nicham tonu, nicham tonu.
Skokie. Ladies and gentlemen, in one moment we are going to daven mincha together. I have been rather restrained this evening, and I will continue to be because the hour is late and you have endured many, many drushes. I just want to point out one thing. From my point of view, the most important drush has not yet been given, and I will hope to say it in 2 sentences. That drush is for every one of the Einekluch that is here. I want you to know that your grandparents could have given this Sefer Torah to a lot of shuls who would have wanted this particular Sefer Torah. I want you to know that there were many, many institutions, both here, Chicago, and Eretz Israel, that it would have been delighted to have such a Sefer Torah with such a history. I would imagine that the reason that they gave it here was for you. This has been your afternoon. You have seen the kavod paid to them that should be paid to them. You have heard the history of their life together in Europe as it is today in the United States. You have seen their Sefer Torah, which is now your Sefer Torah. The pasuk says, "Kisvu lachem es hashira hazot," that when it comes to writing a Sefer Torah, it says it should be as an edus, as a testimony from a Kodesh Baruch Hu, but it is your testimony as well. This is your edus this afternoon. I hope you always remember it and remember this day with pride. We will now daven mincha. Rabbi Fishkin, Harold daven for us. Oh, Yossi, daven mincha.